Good afternoon, this is Atmospheric Alex here, back with another weather outlook and discussion here for today. And I'm glad to say we can finally cover some severe weather. The tropics have been trying to quiet down a little lately, at least until yesterday and today, which we will have to talk about in part 2 of the video more towards the end. But now, here's a bit of an important message. The last time I made an upload was during Hurricane Milton. Now, the impacts weren't as significant as forecasted, but if you would please keep those who got affected in mind. Especially those who got impacted by all those tornadoes earlier that day. Because in my opinion, that was the worst threat of the entire hurricane. It was also the most unpredictable threat. So I'm hoping those people down there are just fine. Now, that being said, we are going to start off with our Storm Prediction Center's convective outlook here, and you can see a fairly large slight risk that has been placed over portions of eastern New Mexico. We're talking about a 2 out of 5 on the severe weather scale. So, in general, you probably could expect some severe weather to move through your area today, and we will go over what those main threats are. In those affected areas, there is a 5% chance of a tornado within 25 miles of a given point. So anywhere in this area could certainly see a tornado today, and you do have to be on alert for that. Especially more localized areas, you could potentially see a stronger tornado. That will be a nowcasting situation later on this evening. And then, cannot forget about our broad 2% risk outside of that. So, decent coverage today. Our wind risk is incredibly low, only a 5% chance, nothing much to worry about. And your hail risk? Well, you have a 15% chance of hail within here, and honestly would not be shocked if they hatch this area off a little bit, because as you'll see on our future radar, we could potentially see some large hail today in those areas, potentially greater than 2 inches in diameter. So we'll have to see what the latest outlook shows in about an hour's time from recording. Alright then, what does our future radar suggest? Well, this is going through the rest of the morning here, and we will begin to see storm initiation. It does appear around, there's a little bit here. This isn't really your main risk yet. These storms here would be starting around noon Mountain Daylight Time. I had to double check that first. I thought this was in Central. This isn't Mountain Time over here. So we're talking around noon for potential storm initiation near Santa Fe there. As we continue through time, now we can really begin to see your more supercellular characteristics here beginning to form. And we are talking about this around 1:30 this afternoon, where we could start seeing your more aggressive storms. Even look over here near Durango, a nice storm there. Heading up into the mountains, extremely heavy snow is expected in some of those mountains as well. So if you're going up there for any reason, turn around. Don't go up there. It's not worth it. Now let's continue here, and you can see a nice little cell split that occurs right here. It's cool how you can see that on the models here. You have a cell going this way, and your other cell going this way. So that kind of shows the environment you'll be in today. Very supercellular in nature. Begin to see further storm initiation. Take a look at these cells here that really get going here. We're talking around Tucumcari there, at least off to the northwest, and off to the northeast of Roswell, which got completely flooded out last night, basically underwater, so I hope everyone there is doing good. I saw the scenes, it looked like a river was going through downtown last night. Very tragic there. You can see these cells. This is when your tornado potential really begins to ramp up here around 5 o'clock this evening here. This will continue. Take a look at these cells, especially this one. You got cells like this capable of producing maybe a strong tornado. Would not rule that out. This becomes more linear, outflow dominant as it heads towards Clayton here. much later on. We're talking around 6 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. And keep seeing these storms popping off. And look at this much later on. Here is your certain strong tornado risk here, heading straight towards Tucumcari there. I mean, look at both of these cells here marching in that general direction. So you do need to be very cautious, especially if one of these cells latch onto a boundary. That could really increase its vorticity and really get something spinning up fast. And this would be taking place here around 7:30 this evening. And look at those cells, still so dominant. You'll also be seeing a lot of large hail concerns in these cells as well. I do expect a hatched hail risk upgrade here and the next Storm Prediction Center's convective outlook here. Storms march through Clayton to Tucumcari there. Definitely big time flooding risk if you're under those storms for a long enough period of time. Tornado risk continues here going into, now it looks like 10 p.m. And this, after that, storms do begin to fizzle out a lot more. And really will just be a very noisy night for Clayton and areas off to the east of there. Now for your low-level winds here, very important to identifying, well, which cells have the probability to produce tornadoes. You can see as we go through time, nothing much early on. We're talking, well, about 25 knots here of lower level flow with this particular supercell. Now, this year has thrown a lot of surprises when it comes to that. You know, usually you need upwards like 34 plus knots, right around there. We've gotten cells with only 10 knots of lower level winds that have produced extremely violent tornadoes earlier, especially in May. We'll have to see if that happens, if we get what I'd like to call a deviant cell motion, which could amplify that further as they move around wherever they want. As you can see, these cells much later on here will be moving into a much more favorable environment for tornadoes with your lower level winds. And as we head into 9 o'clock, look at that. See, 34 knots right in here. So you could definitely be seeing a lot more tornado potential with these isolated cells, even a strong tornado. Now, as we move into 10 p.m., yep, look at all of that lower level flow there. Absolutely pristine environment for today's risk. Okay, now I had to finish recording that beginning part of the intro all over again so I could tell you that this is a transition point to part 2 of our video here. So, we're going to do a brief U.S. weather forecast break, and we're going to look at our temperatures over the next 10 days, and we're going to kind of use this as a bit of a tool here. So you can see very warm temperatures here going on across the upper Midwest, upwards in the 80s today. Wow, that is incredible for this time of year. And you can see we're just going to keep going through time. Really big warm-up occurring for the plains as well. You can see temperatures approaching the low to even mid-90s there for Oklahoma on Wednesday, where temperatures over here remained nice and comfortable highs in the mid to upper 70s at the most. For the Appalachia region, mid-Atlantic, it's going to feel beautiful out there. There's no need to dress up for the heat, no need to dress up for the cold. Perfect, pristine conditions there. But you do have a bit of a cold front that comes in, you know, around Thursday, Friday. Could sink your temperatures a bit. Maybe some frost concerns here across the Ohio Valley on Friday morning. Freeze concerns up here. We're getting into that time of year where that's going to become a regular occurrence. At least it should. And temperatures during the day don't get affected too much. Still, really beautiful conditions. And might I add, mid-80s here going into the Midwest. That is outrageous. We're almost in November. Goodness, for those of you who hate the snow, who hate the cold, well, you're welcome, I suppose. Mother Nature is giving you a wonderful gift here to end off the fall season. But take a look at that really beautiful conditions here across much of the U.S. Take a look at that. We're talking 80s all the way through. This is just amazing. So please take advantage of these warm conditions. Go outside as much as you can, because you may not get this much more this upcoming winter, especially the further north you go. And yeah, I mean, just take a look at this. Mid 80s across much of the central US, still in the mid to upper 70s across southeast Appalachians, mid-Atlantic. Gorgeous, gorgeous weather. And Halloween here, we're talking about, again, such beautiful conditions. 80s for a large chunk of the central US. And how about trick-or-treating overnight? Well, not a problem at all. Look at that. Temperatures here across the Northeast are going to be in the low 50s to low 60s, so not much of a need to wear a jacket there. Beautiful. Conditions across the mid-Atlantic regions here also gorgeous. We're talking about the low 50s to mid 60s. Conditions across the majority of the southeast here. Take a look at that. We're talking about temperatures between the low 60s to low 70s. Goodness, that is gorgeous, especially if you're out there wearing a costume. You don't need to be worrying about getting hot or cold. Amazing, right? Same song and dance across the Appalachians. Beautiful, even if you're wearing a heavier costume. Oh my goodness, absolutely gorgeous weather. And as we look more out west here into the Midwest, into the plains, actually going to be a little bit, I don't know, not going to feel as comfortable here. Mid 70s, even upper 70s. Wearing a costume in those conditions, especially with moisture around, not too great, right? It's going to feel like summer out there. Going to feel maybe a little bit soupy out there at night. And then out for the west here, little bit chilly, and if you're not wearing one, just be sure to wear a jacket, wear a hoodie, whatever you can to stay warm. I'm not going to tell you what to wear. You all should be able to make those decisions by yourself. I would hope to think so, at least. Alright, what is this? Yeah, we have Hurricane Oscar out here barreling towards the tip of southeastern Cuba. Where did this thing come from? Nobody knows, but it's here to stay for a little bit. We're expecting this thing to landfall the next couple hours here as a hurricane, and this will be heading off into Cuba, producing significant flooding and heading off, curving towards the Bahamas off to the northeast. You can see the size of Oscar right now. This thing is absolutely microscopic. Look at your hurricane force winds. Barely even extending out of the center, maybe 5 miles, 10 miles at the most. It's the size of a Florida county, if not even that. This is very tiny, potentially one of the tiniest hurricanes in recorded history here. Unbelievable, if you ask me, which is why it spun up so fast. It went from an invest to a hurricane overnight. Gosh, you thought Milton intensified fast. This thing was pretty much right behind it. Insane, right? Now for your rainfall forecasts here across portions of eastern Cuba, talking about potentially upwards of a foot of rain, so your mountainous area is going to be significantly flooded out, especially as this occurs over a short period of time. This will curve up into the Bahamas, bring them 6 to 8 inches of rain and across some of those islands. Please be very mindful of this. And if you encounter a flood roadway, turn around and do not drown. It's not worth it, alright? Do not be risking your lives out there. Taking a quick glance at our H-WRF model here, you can see this thing making a decent landfall this evening around 5 p.m. as a high-end tropical storm, low-end Category 1 hurricane. Again, bringing heavy rainfall, very strong, potentially damaging winds with it. And take a look at that inner core onshore. Goodness me, that's a lot of rain moving in. You could even see some of your upslope flow up here, your orographic lifting features across those areas as well. And your rain shadow effects on the other sides of your mountains here, which will not receive nearly as much rain. And this continues heavy rainfall, heavy storm activity across much of eastern Cuba. Very dangerous situation unfolding. And this will exit Cuba as a tropical depression, tropical storm, and it'll move up towards Bahamas, bringing water spout concerns. Here you can see some of your hooking signatures here, your supercells. You thought you can get away from it, right? We just talked about severe weather earlier on. Well, we're talking about again. So, significant storm activity there. This continues moving off to the northeast. Ignore this frame, please. I don't know what this model's up to. More supercells here firing off water spout concerns here. And that is really just about it here. And then, of course, ignore this. Goodness gracious, good night. This thing needs to just take a nap. That's Sage War for you. One more quick thing here. Looking at our EPS ensemble model for our future tropical development here in the Caribbean. As we go through the end of October here, you can see a huge explosion in development here. A lot of hurricane signals across the board here that we really need to pay attention to across the Caribbean. This should not be any much of a U.S. impact more than an impact per se. Dominican Republic here, maybe Puerto Rico. Jamaica, please be on high alert. Eastern Cuba, be on high alert as well. And some portions of your Cayman Islands as well need to be alert. A big batch here. Look at all your hurricane possibilities here across the board. Even a couple major hurricane tracks here. So please be mindful of this and stay aware. Tropics are not closing down anytime soon as a more favorable time frame is heading right up. With that being said, thank you so much for tuning into today's video. If you did enjoy, please smash the like button. Feel free to subscribe to my little corner of the weather community as I keep you all informed on this crazy weather coming up here, and perhaps even space weather if we have the need to do that. I saw some incredible aurora the other night, some northern lights, which I was very proud of taking photographs of. And who knows, maybe by the end of the year I'll show some off in later videos. That being said, please share this with your family and friends, maybe on social media. Hit the bell notification icon so you know when I upload next. You know, we have midterms coming up, schedule might get a little bit wonky. I'll see you all in the next video. Have a wonderful afternoon, everyone.